Hey everyone, it's Joakim Akren here. I'm gonna do a lecture today on user acquisition and performance marketing, specifically on ad creatives. So I'll do a short introduction on myself now. So as many of you might know, my name is Joakim Akren. I'm a founder and CEO of Elite Game Developers. It's a company that's helping entrepreneurs to build great games companies. I have a book that just came out called The Long-Term Game, How to Build a Video Games Company. You can check it out on Amazon. And I also have the Elite Game Developers podcast, a blog that you can read on elitegamedevelopers.com. And I have also online courses. The first course just came out called Pitch Your Games Company. You can check that out as well on the Elite Game Developers website. So go to elitegamedevelopers.com. And there's also a webinar happening on the 30th of March, which is titled Inside the Gaming VC's Brain, where I'm going to look at the decision-making processes of these investors. You can check out this webinar in the comments to this video. So some information on my background. So I was one of the co-founders of Next Games, which we started in 2012. The company is known for The Walking Dead No Man's Land, Walking Dead Our World, and there's a Blade Runner game that has been in the works for a while, and there's also a Stranger Things game, which is coming out hopefully soon. And I was one of the early employees at Supercell. When they were making the Gunshine game, I joined to run their analytics team. And after the hit games Clash of Clans and Heyday came out, I left to start Next Games. But before both these companies, I actually had a previous games company that I founded called Ironstar Helsinki in 2005, which did virtual worlds for mobile phones. Very early stuff. I've shared a lot of my learnings on my blog, so you can go there and check it out. So then going into like the topic of today, which is creatives and user acquisition. So my work in these fields was never sort of like creating the actual creatives, but I was definitely on the side of looking at the data regarding these creatives and what the impact could be with certain different kind of creatives. When you're running a campaign, you want to have many creatives running at the same time so that you can get really good data based on these creatives. So we're going to look at some of the best things that I've seen and how I would approach creatives in the modern day of user acquisition for online services. Before going into the ad creatives, I wanted to share a really cool tool that I got to know about in the like few months ago, and I haven't really shared it that much. I shared it on my newsletter, but I wanted to kind of like bring it into this lecture as well. It's from Pollen VC. So it's this kind of simple user acquisition template for mobile advertising. So what is that all about? Their template is basically putting together this spreadsheet. So Pollen VC has put together a really awesome spreadsheet template, which small developers can use to track their user acquisition campaigns. So when you start a campaign, you just add columns to the spreadsheet. For each day of the campaign, you add new rows and enter the CPI and ROAS, that's return on ad spend values, following if the campaign could still be running or if it should be stopped, depending on the performance. So you should definitely take a look at the metrics template. You can go to insights.pollen.vc/articles/user-acquisition-template. And they also have a very insightful YouTube video on their site. So take a look at that to understand this process. If you already have a process in place, that's great, but maybe you can learn stuff from here. And also, if you haven't ever had a user acquisition template for yourself, or you're just getting started, this is definitely the place to go and take a look. So let's jump into today's topic, the UA creatives. What are they? So web and mobile have different things going for them, but I'm going to focus so much today on mobile and gaming specifically because that is my background. But you can rest assured, because if you're working in a different kind of industry, maybe you're not doing mobile games, you can still apply these learnings to a web service or to non-gaming related businesses. So let's go into like what's going on in mobile. There's a few kind of like different formats. I'm going to talk about high production value creatives. And then we're going to go into fake ads. You probably heard about these. They're the hottest topic at the moment. And then you got your playable ads, which basically showcase the game in a different kind of way that other creative formats have never been able to do in any kind of medium. And then there's a lot of experimentation going on because user acquisition is super tough, so you want to go and experiment. So I'll show you a few interesting cases out there. And then some influencer marketing. You probably know what this is all about, but how can you really measure the impact of influencer marketing? So high production value ads. So there's these, like you could take a comparison from some Super Bowl ads. We've seen this in gaming happen a lot. I'm going to show you a few examples of what a kind of like a high production value creative could be. And let's look at this video. You probably recognize this one.
I don't know you, Big Buffet Boy 85. But if you think you can humiliate me and take my gold, think again. Oh, I'm coming for you with lots of barbarians and dragons. I can't wait to destroy your village while you beg for mercy. But you will get no mercy. I will have my revenge.
Liam? I was going for Liam?
Over here. It's, Liam. You will regret the day you crossed Angry Neeson 52.
Angry Neeson 52.
So what really happened there, I think, is the essence is that they used a lot of gameplay footage. Then they fixed the gameplay footage into you watching this kind of like separately rendered 3D animation that was very, very high production value, which they're definitely using for a lot of spots all around in different kind of like gaming ads. And then you got Liam Neeson, which definitely like changes things into a totally different level. Then you got your Game of War Fire Age ads, which were also a huge thing back in the day, where Machine Zone, the creator of the game, were making ads with Kate Upton, which were also featured on the Super Bowl. These budget for these ads are crazy, but the conversion is definitely there. We're just seeing like that that these kind of like production values then can be utilized in so many ways for several months. Like then we did stuff at Next Games as well. Here's an example of something that we did.
First, I was excited to get back to real life, you know, normal things, grocery shopping, library returns, but it's just not the same anymore. Something's missing. You know what makes grocery shopping bearable? Taking down walkers. You know what makes library returns bearable? Taking down walkers.
You know what makes listening to you bearable? Taking down walkers.
The Walking Dead Our World, a brand new location-based mobile game.
So we had the chance to work with the talent from the show, for them to actually like create content for the games, for the ads. And then we ran those on TV. We used them also on mobile as video ads. The conversions, definitely, I won't go into those, but specifically these ads were unique because we could tailor it directly to The Walking Dead with the talent from the actual TV show showing up in our ads for the game. Then let's go into fake ads. It's a popular notion that's going around at the moment. I'll pick an example now, which is Gardenscapes. So a lot of you have played Gardenscapes. It's basically a match 3 game where you have a meta game where you're restoring a mansion and a garden that was kind of like ransacked and nobody was taking care of it, and you can earn currency which you then use to restore your mansion and the garden. But if you look at like what's actually been going on for Playrix with who is the developer of the game, there has been a lot more stuff regarding like something that isn't actually the game, but is triggering emotions, these kind of fake ads. Here's one of the ads, for instance. So there's a lot of this kind of emotions going on here. That's why they usually work so well, that people see something that they need to do a choice, and it's an exciting moment, and you're doing the decision. Even though it's not about, you know, match 3 at all here, people will go through this funnel of playing the playable ad and then seeing what happens, or watching a video ad where you see these kind of like different moments happening. So let's take a look at like a tool that Facebook has, which is called the Ad Library tool, which I'll also add a link into the show notes, where you can go and actually like watch different kind of developers create ads, what kind of ads they've created. So this is all the ads that the guys at Playrix have created, which are live on Facebook at the moment for Gardenscapes. And there isn't a single ad there visualizing match 3, which shows how much the fake ads are actually the ones that work the most for this audience. So specifically, it's a very casual audience. A lot of people are trying this for casual games at the moment. If you go on Facebook, you're going to be bumping into a lot of these kind of ads where the player is pulling the string to actually see if the lava drops on top of the character and stuff like that. So it's an interesting field at the moment, and we'll need to see how it changes over time, but at least it seems that the creatives here are working so well. And then let's go to the playable ads. Playable ads are specifically important because You get to play the game, or a sort of game where you try out a level, you try out something, and then you progress. You see what it meant for you. So talking about like the performance there, a lot of people are saying that it's actually converting 10 times better than a regular video ad or an interstitial banner ad, especially when the gameplay transforms to an easily comprehensible level. Like a hyper-casual game could easily show off what the game is all about when you start trying it out. These kind of short, satisfying, and easily understandable levels really go in as a playable super well. So ads which start by immediately asking the user to interact is a mechanism which creates high engagement. If you don't interact, you'll never know what is the offer and what's going on. And then the player is like finally asked, like, do you want to play another level? And that leads them to the App Store when they tap on that button to actually ask them to install the game, which then leads to a conversion. So for hyper-casual, the first point here is that hyper-casual games can be picked up by anyone, understood and played in under 10 minutes, 10 seconds. And this kind of onboarding experience is almost non-existent because it's so simple. The game kind of like speaks for itself. You can try it out, and there's no tutorial necessarily needed for the player. But then there's some even hardcore games now that are utilizing playables, specifically when the gameplay is intuitive enough that these kind of conversion metrics can really start showing up in new kind of ways. One of these is definitely Empires and Puzzles, which has been doing a lot of playables. There's the company here in Finland called Sepia Playables, who have been working with a lot of developers to create these playables. And here's a showcase of what they've done. I think the kind of like, this is just scratching the surface with what could actually be done with these playable ads.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
So what is the secret sauce? Well, I think everybody needs to ask this question since this is such a cool ad format. What should you do next with it? So for me, as a person who looks at things from an analytical point of view, I'm thinking about, hey, this should definitely be a kind of like a funnel-based metric. So if you think about metrics, what should it be? So metrics for a playable ad. You got the ad loaded, then you start the tutorial ends, the level is lost, the game over, click to download. These kind of like events could be the ones that you have a funnel there. You might have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events that you're tracking, and people are going through a funnel. And then when they drop off, you can point out which of the places aren't working. So this is even more closer to what game developers are used to when they're building a tutorial and doing soft launch to measure how their game is performing, and then they're tweaking the tutorial. You can use the similar kind of metric funnels here to actually hone in on better playables. So I'll illustrate this with a graph here. So you can look at churn for a playable ad. You're looking at these funnel events where the first event could be that, the ad was loaded, and then the last event is where the user actually clicked the download button to actually go to the App Store and download it. But you can measure different kind of churns at different points. When you have the red line there pointing out something that's super high, you can start tweaking it. And the cool thing is that you can actually run a lot of A/B tests with this similar at the same time, where you have let's say 5 different kind of variations of a playable, and you're seeing where people are churning from your ads. This is totally different kind of metrics level ad optimization that hasn't been possible before. Like, think about all sorts of advertisement. You've never really gotten as granular as you can go with the playable ads funnel. Let's talk about then the experimentation. There are a lot of wild ad formats out there. I want to talk a bit about Best Fiends and Seriously, who have really been pioneering in this area. For instance, they're doing a lot of podcast ads and radio ads. So there's a podcast ad that was available recently. I bumped into these guys because I'm doing a podcast, so I was looking for different kind of advertisers that want to advertise. So I bumped into Best Fiends. So they're basically pointing out there that, do your listeners like mysteries and puzzles? We're looking to work with podcasters who are passionate about solving mysteries and can propose creative ideas to integrate Best Fiends into their podcast. So this is interesting. So it's an ad which then would come up when you're listening to your podcast. It's a mid-roll ad, so it comes at the middle of the episode. But yeah, it's not just this. The guys at Seriously had done also this radio ads where they did a request for the creators. I bumped into a kind of like a request to create a radio ad for them. And they were pointing out here that, your ideas can revolve around one of the below formats, like standalone brand spot. What could this look like if it was a standalone advertisement for Best Fiends, like a fun scripted endorsement for radio personalities? And they're putting out here that the Best Fiends ads typically play on country and pop hit stations. That's totally new. And then they have all of the core audience laid out there. It's women 25 to 54, and there's a secondary demographic which is men from 18 to 50. So, and then the tone for the ad should be, think along the lines of Minions and The Simpsons, funny but subversive and playful. And yeah, that really creates a interesting setup for an ad. And then they're mentioning there that the ideas must drive viewers or listeners to download the game, and ideas must be executable within 15 to 30 seconds. And of course they're really like experimenting a lot, so you can see their billboards around the US where they're attracting downloads with these billboards. And I think they did a really good job of driving downloads to a game that was already over 5 years old at this stage in 2019. And then influencer marketing. What's that all about and how does it work? Well, in influencer marketing, you get a personality who does YouTube gameplay videos, who has a lot of following, and you contact them through an agency of some sorts, and then you start a campaign where they create the video. Here I have a clip from a certain influencer who did an ad for AFK Arena where they're introducing the new character. And when you go to YouTube, you can spot then like what's going on there. So they provide a download link below the video, so you can get the game. What does that then mean? Well, the tracking of these videos needs to be in place so that people who are watching the videos can then go and activate and download the game. So there was the tracking link there below the video. But it's definitely not going to be your only thing that you need to be monitoring, because not all of the audience will be clicking these links. So what do you do then? Because how do you manage to track the full performance of an influencer ad? Well, this is something that we did at Next Games a lot, because we had TV campaigns going on for the Walking Dead ads. So we looked at uplift, which means that you start gaining installs from a country where the ad was running, which then goes into the influencer's campaign going live on a certain date. You can look at the uplift into like new installs for the game in these countries during that 24 hours or so, or 48 hours. And then you look at that towards what is going on with the tracking links. You can like extrapolate like what is the uplift there, where does the influencer have their audiences. Maybe they're in the US, maybe they're big in tier 1 countries. And then you start like understanding like which influencers really drive traffic for you the best. So there's a lot of good things to consider about influencer marketing. So aside from measuring the performance of the campaigns, it's also worth considering that the value of the content of the video, it can be actually used later on in social channels, and you can make it a super engaging paid ad as well, where the personality is engaging with their game as a gamer. Like YouTube is very good for gaming content, as you've seen with Minecraft getting kind of like the big uplift for that game in 2019 happened basically because YouTube gaming video creators started playing the game again, and a new generation jumped in and started playing the game. So there's a really good spin there, like you can create a positive brand message, and it may end up serving as an important touch point for a future download. Let's talk about the creative strategy. So before you start making creatives, you need to prepare yourself for certain aspects. Make your team knowledgeable of these as well. You want to be prepared because you're going to be spending money, you're going to be executing, you're going to be creating these campaigns. So you want to know beforehand what usually works and what doesn't work. And you need to know that there's a competition out there and they're buying users with high bids. So your experimentation will definitely need a budget in place. And you want to allocate the right amount of time to figure things out. So because things can get really expensive when you start experimenting. So, you want to know that you're taking all the steps necessary and you know what is your extent that you can go into experimentation. So why can it be really expensive is that, your ad creatives might not perform that well right away. Maybe there isn't, the right kind of creative optimization in place. The story isn't working. But how do you prepare? Let's go through these kind of steps that really illustrate the ways that developers who are doing creatives for their user acquisition campaigns can become more prepared. So point number 1, do your research. You got to utilize tools like Facebook's ad library or Twitter's ad transparency option. Those are the tools that are really good for figuring out what is the competition's ad inventory looking like. You can go on Facebook's ad library and pull up what's going on over there. You can take a look at them. Like, let's say that you would be doing an Archero kind of game. You can just go into the ad library and type in Archero, and there's going to be a lot of ads coming up that are currently being running for Habi, who's the developer of Archero, what they're doing at the moment. Here you can see an ad where there's a lot of action going on. It looks really cool. The character that the player has is taking out hundreds of soldiers who are coming at them. It really shows you as the developer who is creating these ads. It's like, what is the other developer already experimenting on? What are they doing? What is the story and the message of these creatives? Do your research. Look at everybody who is in that field. The good thing with the Facebook ad library is that you can get this data from there. There's nothing preventing you from knowing what everybody is doing. This is totally something new that didn't exist before, and it's all free. Facebook has created this ad library tool because they realized that they need to show more transparency into political ads. What is actually happening when you have elections coming up? That is there kind of like this kind of communication from the other side, the other party, that is kind of something that everybody should know. And then point number 2, define your concepts, then your variations. Like if you're doing ads, you want to start up from the high level. Think about a concept, like what is a different theme and a story that you want to tell through the ad. That is the concept. But then you have variations of these stories, and the different items inside those stories get differently highlighted. So here you could have concept A, B, and C, and then you start creating the variations like A1, A2, A3, and then onwards you create variations of concept B and C. And here's an example of what the Perfect Cream game, which is the #1 downloaded game at the moment from Plagendary, is doing. So you can look at the ad library and can see that they have basically the same ad there, but the background color is different. So they're wanting to see which of these colorings actually resonates best for their target audience. It's a super hyper casual game. It's basically a game where you have a creaming machine that is sort of pouring cream on different kind of food, and you don't want to bump into these walls that come at you, because you're gonna get the game over and you need to restart the level. So there's really interesting things going on there. Point number 3, stills versus videos versus playable ads. You want to understand the difference of these formats. How do they really like communicate to end users in different ways? And which one should you experiment with first? You probably want to start with the cheapest versions, but also you need to think about like how much time you have at the moment to figure out if you can drive traffic to your game. Maybe you're starting slow, maybe you want to ramp up quickly. It really depends. But how do you use the concepts that you've created in each of these different formats to actually talk about this story? So let's go and talk a bit more about like how you can actually create this kind of really good story. So prepare for testing your creatives. Have the right team in place, an internal and an external team. And then think about having a budget in place. And most importantly, have lots of ways to experiment with these creatives. And since I come from an analytics background, I really want to highlight that the most important is to build knowledge of what works and what doesn't, so that you can repeat and iterate on your successes, but also think about the failures there. I'm gonna show you like some of the main things that you should experiment on with the creatives when you're creating these variations. So first off, you got the color schemes. Like we had there in the Perfect Cream, you want to try out different background colors for the ads. Then you have the backgrounds, but also textures, fades, these kind of washes that happen. You want to really like create a different kind of feeling through what the visual language is speaking, the colors, but also the shadowings and things like that. And then try out different kind of texts inside the copy, what's like talked about inside the ad. Stories, ideas, an image format. Maybe you're not doing, colors, but you're doing black and white, something like that. And then different kind of calls to action, like, hey, download now or get it today, whatever. And then you have like shorter videos, more longer videos going from 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. What really performs better there? And different layouts. You have a horizontal, maybe landscape, portrait mode, different kind of split screens, whatnot. Then headers and titles when the video is running, that the viewer can see what's going on in the background, but also they're reading some certain kind of information regarding the game. And then the type of visual style, is it cartoony? Is there sort of like some kind of visualization that is going on that from certain kind of like animations, modern, classical, whatnot. And then logos, branding on top of the videos, buttons, boxes, links, then multiple products versus just one single product being advertised in the creative. And then you have a visual style. Is it animated, real life, or cartoon? And the ad placement and the positioning. How do you kind of like put the ads inside Facebook, for instance? Where do they come up? Like try out different locations, like based on what the user is doing. Also the interactivity versus rewarded ads. Like you might have something where if you have an incentivized ad, watching a video ad to get some rewards, you can actually figure that out with your advertising partner if that is possible to actually like A/B test those. And also music. What is the soundtracks? If there's, you know, some kind of voices, people talking, you know, giving something than just text call to action. And featuring gameplay. Do you want to show the actual gameplay or something like the fake ads are doing? And then the characters, including them in your advertising. Like, do you want to kind of like show different kind of emotions with the characters? Gardenscapes. Playrix is doing that with a lot with the Gardenscapes ads, where the characters are really well prominent in all of the ads. And then for mobile devices, it's a bit different. You have different kind of like abilities with the mobile phone. You have different kind of screens, Android, iOS. What is the difference there? Try to figure out if there's possibilities to do different things on different platforms. Plus, finally, an App Store logo inclusion, like download now from Google Play or download now from the App Store, depending on what platform you're on. So when you finally go into ordering creatives, what do you need to know at that stage from ordering creatives from an external party? So I talked with the guys at Sepia. They actually said that, for instance, they have a minimum budget of 2,000 euros per one playable ad. And they can give a discount to people who aren't in a super like hurry to get the ad out. So if they can wait for a few weeks before work starts on the ad, but they pay already up front, they're gonna, you know, happily give a small discount there. So there's a budget needed in place. But if you have your own team who can work on the ads, the more the better. So that's a summary of what we just discussed in this lecture. So, first off, web and mobile, gaming and non-gaming. There's a lot of similarities when you're creating ad creatives. So it doesn't really like say that you cannot do that outside of gaming. Just experiment. That's what I'm really like encouraging people to think about. And then you have formats like high production value to playable ads to influencer marketing creatives. And you need to understand how to measure your creative performance. I visualized how you can really easily look at different steps in a playable ad and then activate that as like you would be creating a tutorial for your game, that you can start improving these steps when you go forward. And then you have a creative strategy where you're, you know, figuring out what you need to know first before you start creating the ads, what kind of concepts and variations you want to do and things like that. And finally, how do you order creatives? What does the price tag look like at this stage? Yeah, that's all for today. So if you want to ask some questions from me, you can definitely ask them in the comments here, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I see new comments coming up with questions. Thanks a lot. Take a look at my podcast and my site at elitegamedevelopers.com. And we have another lecture coming in the 16th of April. So prepare yourself for that one. It's going to be a really good one. Talk to you guys then. Bye-bye.